Is this Sweden's most haunted house? Many who have set foot here swear that it is. This is a house built on an execution site, a home where children have died a slow, painful death in the attic, and a place where priests, men of God, have fled in pure terror. Welcome to Framagården, the house where the dead are heard more than the living. So turn off the lights, lock the door, and crawl under the covers, because you are watching Bedtime Chillers. There are places in Sweden where the map ends, but history continues. If you travel to Värmland and head west until the roads get narrower and the forests darker, you eventually reach Skillingmark. We are in the borderlands. Here, in the vast Finnskogen forests, the border between Sweden and Norway has always been more than just a line on a map. It has been a zone for smugglers, for refugees, and for those wanting to hide. But there is a hill in this region that you cannot hide from: Framagården. At first glance, it is beautiful. A red timber house from the 1700s, a classic Swedish idyll. But appearances can be deceiving. This isn't just a homestead museum where you stop for coffee and look at old farm tools. This house is considered by many to be one of the most haunted places in all of Scandinavia. It is a place where visitors don't just see things, they feel them. A weight on the chest, a sudden icy chill in the middle of summer, a feeling that the air you breathe in has already been breathed by someone else. To understand why Framagården is so feared, we must peel back the layers. We have to look at the ground it stands on, the walls that enclose it, and the tragedies that unfolded inside. Because at Framagården, the past is not dead. It hasn't even passed. Before the first log was laid, before the house was even a blueprint, this place was already marked. The locals speak of the hill with a special kind of respect, or perhaps fear. The legend, whispered from generation to generation in Skillingmark, says that the ground beneath the house is an old execution site. We must go back to the 1600s, a time when Sweden was gripped by mass hysteria. The witch trials. Here in the borderlands, belief in the supernatural was strong. People believed the forests were full of entities and that certain women were in league with the devil. History tells us that women judged for witchcraft were brought here to this very hill. The sentence was brutal: beheading, followed by burning at the stake. Imagine the scene: the screams, the fire, the smell of burning flesh, and the fear that saturated the air. Even though we lack the exact court records pointing to this specific spot on the map, the experiences speak clearly. Many mediums and sensitive people who visit the farm react strongly just entering the courtyard. They describe an energy that doesn't come from the house, but from below. A primal, dark aggression. The theory is that the earth has been impregnated by the victim's last minutes of pure terror. That the blood and ash mixed with the soil created a wound in nature that never healed. The house is, literally, built on a foundation of death anxiety. When you step over the high threshold, you leave the 21st century behind. The interior of Framagården is unique. That is because of one woman, Kerstin Eriksson. She was the last private owner. She was born here, she lived her whole life here, and in the 1940s, she died here. When she bequeathed the farm to the local heritage society, it was as if time froze. No modern renovations have been done. No one has ripped out the old floors or painted over the soot on the ceiling. This is the key to the atmosphere. According to the stone tape theory in parapsychology, materials like wood, stone, and water can act like a battery. They store emotional energy. And since Framagordon has never been renovated, no one has erased the tape. The walls remember everything. The harsh winters of the 1800s, the diseases, the sorrow. But it's not just memories, it is Kirsten herself. Kirsten isn't described as a demon or a monster. She is a residual spirit, a guardian. She guards her home with the same iron fist now as she did when she was alive. Visitors who stay overnight often tell the same story. They hear the sound of shuffling slippers, someone doing a round of the house to make sure everything is in order. There are countless stories of people moving a chair or a candlestick only to find it put back a moment later, or the feeling of a stern glare on the back of your neck if you talk too loud or behave badly. She is the mistress of the house, and she tolerates no intruders who show disrespect. Her presence is strongest in the room called the corpse room, Likramet. This was where they laid the dead on Lit de Parade before the funeral. This is where Kirsten herself took her last breath. The bed remains, and many say she never really got out of it. But if Kirsten is the order, the attic is the chaos and the sorrow. It is up here, under the dark, sloping roof, that Framagordon's darkest chapter is found. The story of the children. The legend is one of the most terrible you can hear. The reality, which we can read in the church records, is no less frightening. Research shows that in 1865, 2 children died on the farm. Kirsten, 4 years old, and Niels, 2 years old. The cause of death was not starvation, but diphtheria. To us today, diphtheria is just a word. In the 19th century, it was a death sentence. They called it the strangling sickness. The bacteria creates a thick gray coating in the throat that grows until it blocks the airways. Death is slow and painful. The children suffocate, bit by bit. This is where legend and reality meet. To avoid infecting the rest of the family, sick children were often isolated. It is very likely that Niels and Kirsten were locked in a room, perhaps right here in the attic, in quarantine. Imagine the terror in that room. 2 small children alone in the dark, with throats swelling shut, gasping for air, crying but getting no answer. They didn't die from evil, but from disease, yet the result is the same. A horrific, drawn-out death struggle in total isolation. And this is what visitors hear today. It's not ghosts saying boo. It is the sound of suffering. Visitors report crying children coming from nowhere. The sound of small feet running across the floorboards in the attic. And the attic door. It is known to open by itself, or sometimes be impossible to open, as if someone is holding it shut from the inside. Some have even felt small cold, children's hands tentatively grabbing their clothes in the dark. One can easily dismiss ghost stories as fantasies, tricks of the mind created by darkness and old legends. But what makes Framagordon so hard to explain away is the consistency. For decades, people have visited this farm. People who don't know each other, who have never met, and who don't know the history. Yet, they describe exactly the same things. It's not just thrill-seeking teenagers, it is skeptics, journalists, and the Heritage Society's own staff who reluctantly admit they don't want to be alone in the house. When an adult rational human being runs out of a house in the middle of the night and refuses to go back in, then it's not just the wind blowing. The phenomena here are concrete. The most famous is the 3 knocks. 3 distinct strikes in the wall. In folklore, 3 knocks are an omen of death. In demonology, it is seen as a mockery of the Holy Trinity. At Framagorden, it's almost everyday life. And in modern times, as technology has entered the picture, the mystery has deepened. Countless investigations have been done here. Audio recordings, so-called EVPs, have captured voices answering questions. Norwegian teams, Swedish YouTubers, they all get the same results. Batteries dying immediately in the corpse room. Cameras shutting off, and voices whispering names out of thin air. Technology doesn't lie. It has no imagination, and it is reacting to something in this house. So, what is really going on in Skillingmark? Is Framagorden a portal to the other side? Or is it a monument to human suffering? Maybe it doesn't matter if the children starved or died of disease. Maybe it doesn't matter if witches were burned on this exact hill or the one next to it. The energy is real. The fear, the sorrow, and the death have etched themselves into the timber. Framagorden is not an empty house. It is full of those who lived, loved, suffered, and died here. They haven't left the place. And when you visit Framagorden, when you stand there in the dark, listening to the silence, the question isn't if you believe in ghosts. The question is if the ghosts believe in you, and if they plan to let you leave alone. Imagine that light is the only thing you have left. Your world has shrunk to the faint yellow glow of 2 simple candles on a rough-hewn wooden table. You watch the flames dance. You see the wax melt, drop by drop. Each drop is a second of your remaining life. Because when the final light flickers and dies, you know the darkness is not temporary. It is permanent. Torpa Stenhus, rising from the mists by Lake Osunden, is not just a castle. It is one of Sweden's best preserved medieval fortresses, built for defense against the Danes. But the architecture reveals something much darker. With meter-thick walls and arrow slits narrow as trenches, it is a trap of stone and mortar. This is a place where history is not something we read in dusty books. Here, history sits physically in the walls. The stones remember. And in one of these walls, in a void the architects never drew, it is said that she still remains. Turn off the lights, lock the door, and pull the covers up. You are watching Bedtime Chillers, and today we visit one of Sweden's most haunted yet hidden houses. The legend of the walled-in girl is Torpa's open, bleeding wound. We must understand the time to understand the horror. It was during the age of plague. The Black Death was not just a disease, it was the apocalypse. The fear of contagion was so total that it crushed the foundations of society and drove fathers to betray their own blood. When the Lord's daughter returned to Torpa after a trip to relatives in Denmark, she carried news that froze the blood in her father's veins. The plague had broken out where she stayed. The father, a man of lineage and honor, faced an impossible choice. He wasn't driven by hate, but by a brutal, cold logic. If she was infected, she would drag the whole lineage, the whole estate, down into ruin. To save the family, the daughter needed to be erased. She was led to a remote room, likely connected to the stairwell. She was seated on a chair, in front of that table with the 2 live candles. She wasn't sick yet. She was alive, warm, and fully conscious. While she begged for her life, while she screamed for her father, the masons advanced. Stone was laid upon stone. The mortar scraped. The light from the corridor became a mere sliver, and then nothing. Her little sister sat outside the freshly walled, damp barrier. She couldn't save her, but she couldn't leave her either. She kept vigil for 4 days. Through the stone, she heard the crying. She heard the desperate banging against the inside of the wall. She heard the oxygen running out and the panic turning into delirium. But the worst wasn't the sounds. The worst was day 5. For on the 5th day, when the lights inside had burned out, it went silent. A silence so heavy, it still echoes in the stairwell today. Many skeptics have dismissed this as a cruel tale, a story to scare children. But Torpa Stenhus does not permit doubt. Those who have disrespectfully tried to disturb the grave have paid a horrifying price. There are documented accounts of a former owner, driven by curiosity or greed, who tried to break into the pointed-out wall. He scratched himself lightly on an old rusty nail sticking out of the mortar. An insignificant wound, he thought. A few days later, he was dead from violent blood poisoning. Another man, a craftsman trying to chip open the wall for a renovation, testified about an invisible force. It wasn't a feeling, it was a physical attack. Something grabbed him, a violent hand from nowhere, and hurled him backwards down the steep stone stairs with such force that he broke both arms and legs. The location remains physically taxing to visit today. Visitors and mediums testify to an unfamiliar dull tone at the wall, a low-frequency sound not heard with ears, but felt as a vibration in the stomach, an instinctive signal from the reptilian brain screaming, "Do not come closer. Do not wake what sleeps." But the girl in the wall is not alone in the dark. In the magnificent King's Hall, where portraits of the Stenbock lineage hang heavy on the walls, female visitors rarely feel alone. Many testify to the same thing: an intense stare at their back, a feeling of being scrutinized. When they turn around, the room is empty, but in the corner of your eye, just before the gaze focuses, you can see him. It is little Gustav Stenbock. He was only 3 years old when tragedy struck. He fell into the castle's deep well and drowned in the freezing water. He still wanders here, dressed in his old-fashioned 17th century clothes. But what makes the meeting unpleasant is that he doesn't play. He doesn't seek contact like a normal child. He observes. He constantly searches for the mother figure he lost in the deep. The house also seems to function as a tape recorder. According to the stone tape theory, minerals can store emotional energy, and Torpa's walls are saturated. From the uppermost guest floor, the sound of life is often heard. Staff working late evenings stop in their chores. They hear laughter. They hear the murmur of quiet conversations, the clinking of glass, the rustling of heavy silk, the sound of a party. But when walking up the creaking stairs to see who the intruders are, they are met by total silence. The rooms are empty. The dust lies untouched. Is it an echo from the past playing over and over, or is the party still going on, in a dimension just out of reach of our senses? We move downwards, deep in the castle, in the cellar vaults, where the cold bites, even during the hottest summer days. The atmosphere changes. Down here, the sound of the blacksmith is sometimes heard. heavy metallic blows echoing in the rock. Thud, thud, thud. No one knows who he is or what he is forging in eternity. Or is it the sound of shackles? For down here we also meet the Grey Lady. Her fate is a dark mirror image of Romeo and Juliet. History says she was a daughter at the castle and fell in love with a Danish prisoner held in the dungeon. A love across borders in a time of war. Her father discovered the betrayal. He had her lover executed, some say beheaded, down here in the dark, right in front of her eyes. She died shortly after, not of disease, but of a broken heart and pure grief. The Grey Lady is not a diffuse ghost you sense in the mist. She is known for being so clear, so physically tangible, that visitors often mistake her for a living guide or actor in period clothes. They go up to ask something, but just when they are about to address her, she dissolves into thin air. She wanders through the halls, a constant silent reminder that the price of power is always paid in blood and tears. Torpe Stenhus, finally, is a place where death keeps a schedule. According to the old family legend, the castle is bound to its owners beyond the grave. The legend says that when a lord of the manor is dying, they come. From the avenue, the sound of hooves against gravel is heard. 4 stately white horses pull a black carriage up to the castle courtyard. They stop at the heavy oak gate. They wait. The horses snort in the night cold. No driver is seen. No one gets off, and no living person gets on. But they fetch something. When the soul has left the body, the carriage turns and drives slowly away into the night, back to the darkness it came from. But it isn't just legends that give Torpe its reputation. It is the present. It is what ordinary people, tourists, skeptics, and school classes experience when they step over the threshold. Online forums and travel blogs are filled with stories that are frighteningly consistent. A recurring report is about the false guide. Several visitors have independently described seeing a woman in a grey dress standing still in the shadows by the Knight's Hall. They think it's an employee, an actor to liven up the tour. But when they go to ask a question or look away for a second, she is gone. There are no doors she could have exited through, just empty air and a lingering scent of old dust. Even more tangible is the physical pressure, especially in the stairwell near the walled-in niche. People describe not just cold, but a weight. It feels like the air thickens, like walking through water. Some visitors are hit by sudden, inexplicable grief that makes tears run without reason. Others describe a crushing feeling on the chest, like invisible hands testing the grip around their ribs. And technology? It seems unwelcome here. Professional photographers and amateurs testify to the same thing. Fully charged camera batteries die the second they enter the dungeon, only to work perfectly again as soon as they leave the castle. It is as if Torpe Stenhus drains energy from everything living that enters its walls. Torpe Stenhus was built to keep enemies out. The walls are thick, the gates heavy. But the truth, whispered through the centuries, is that the real horrors have always been found inside. Do you dare visit Torpe? Or are you afraid the silence from day 5 will start talking to you? Comment what you think and leave suggestions for more haunted places. Is this Sweden's most haunted inn? Mariefred. Taste the name. Mary's Peace. It sounds like a blessing, doesn't it? A place where the soul can find rest. But ask the guests who have fled head over heels from room 102 in the middle of the night, or the staff who refuse to go down into the wine cellar alone. And you'll get a very different answer. Turn off the lights, lock the door, and crawl under the covers, because you are watching Bedtime Chillers. If you visit the town on a sunny July day, you see only the idol. The steamboat docks at the pier, and tourists stroll along the streets, ice cream in hand. Opposite the massive red Vasa castle lies Gripsholm's Värdshus, Gripsholm Inn, a yellow-painted dream of hospitality boasting the title of Sweden's oldest inn. But here, you don't just check in with your suitcase, you check in with the dead. Because appearances are deceiving. Beneath the polished surface, beneath the creaking floorboards, where unseen footsteps are heard at night, rests a darker history. A history not found in tourist brochures. The ground here is not neutral, it is saturated. Before there was an inn, before there were tourists, there was a silence here so deep it could crush a human being. You check in for a weekend of luxury and fine dining, but when night falls and the staff have gone home, that is when what was here first awakens. Welcome to Gripsholm's Värdshus. Welcome to Pax Mariae. To understand the horror, we must travel back, long before 1609, when the inn received its privileges. We must go back to 1493. Sweden was a different country then, a land of faith, incense, and fear of purgatory. On this very spot, where the inn and the church stand today, the Pax Mariae monastery was founded. This wasn't just any monastery, these were monks who sought God through extreme isolation. They took vows of total silence. They lived in small, separate cells, ate alone, and met only for nightly prayers. Imagine the energy of this place. Decades of men suppressing every impulse, every word, every emotion, and channeling it all inward, down into the earth, into the stone. But the peace did not last. In 1527, the storm winds of the Reformation swept across the land. King Gustav Vasa, a man who loved gold more than God, crushed the monastery. The monks were driven out. Their holy home was torn down stone by stone to expand the royal castle towering nearby. It was a desecration. But they didn't take everything. Beneath the inn's foundation, deep down in the clay, the cellar vaults remained. And the graves. The monks who lived and died here remain. They have never left their post. And they do not appreciate intruders. Let's go down beneath the beautiful dining halls. Today, the old monastery vaults have been converted into an exclusive wine cellar. It is cramped, with low ceilings, and the air is cool and damp. Down here, vintage wines worth thousands of crowns are stored. But down here also lie the remnants of what once was. In a corner, you can see the remains of a monastery well and an old millstone. Physical proof that we are in the monk's domain. The staff at the inn are not easily scared novices. They are professionals who have handled everything from stressful weddings to demanding conferences. But ask them about the last rounds in the cellar, and you will see their gaze falter. There is an unspoken rule here. You do not go down alone after midnight. It is a place where silence has a physical weight. It isn't just darkness, it is an atmospheric shift, like stepping into a pressure chamber. The air feels sluggish, saturated with a damp chill that penetrates your clothes. A chill that doesn't come from the air conditioning. It is the feeling that the air thickens, that the space is occupied even though you can see you are alone. This is where the brothers reside, the Carthusians. They are rarely seen head-on. They are shadows in the corner of your eye, grey silhouettes of coarse wool that vanish as soon as you turn your head. But what truly makes the hairs stand up on the neck of anyone who sees them is how they move. It is a glitch in reality. Witnesses describe with horror how the monks sometimes seem to float a few inches above the concrete, or even worse, how they plow forward with their feet and shins sunk into the solid stone floor, as if it were water. Why? Because they are not walking in our time. They are treading on the clay floor of the 15th century, a level buried beneath centuries of renovations and remodeling. They take no notice of modern walls or expensive oak wine racks. They walk straight through them as if they were made of smoke. To them, the inn does not exist. To them, these are still the long, cold corridors of the monastery on the way to night prayer. And sometimes, when the hum of the ventilation dies down and the house becomes still, you can hear them. At first, it sounds like a draft or the rushing of your own blood in your ears. But then, you distinguish the rhythm, a low guttural chanting in Latin. Kyrie eleison, Lord have mercy. It doesn't come from a speaker. It vibrates in the stone itself, in the mortar all around you. It is an echo trapped in time, a prayer that started 500 years ago and has never, ever fallen silent. We leave the cellar and head up the stairs, but don't think you are safe there. Among the inn's 46 rooms, 2 stand out. 2 rooms where guests, time and time again, report things that cannot be explained away by drafty windows or old pipes. Let's start with room 210. It is a beautiful room, decorated in a classic style. But a restlessness rests in here. Guests staying in room 210 often wake up in the middle of the night to sounds. Heavy footsteps. Someone pacing back and forth across the floor. It's not the neighbor upstairs, because there is no one upstairs. The sound is inside the room. It is described as anxiety, like someone waiting for life-altering news. A death sentence, a letter from a loved one. The door handle is pressed down. The door glides open, even though it was locked, but no one steps in, only the cold. Some guests have smelled the scent of wet wool and earth. Others have seen a man sitting in the armchair in the corner, only to vanish when they turn on the lamp. He doesn't look at you. He looks at the door. He is still waiting. But there is another entity at the inn, one that gets much closer. In room 115, and sometimes in other parts of the older building, the house mistress rules. Unlike the anonymous monks or the restless man in 210, she is interactive. She knows you are there. Imagine you are lying in the soft hotel bed. You have just drifted off to sleep. Suddenly, you wake up because the duvet moves. It's not that you kicked it off. Someone is pulling it. Guests have recounted with mixed terror and delight, and sometimes pure panic, how they felt hands tucking them in. They feel the weight of the duvet being pressed under their bodies, just like a mother does with a child. It might sound innocent, caring, but ask yourself, do you really want to wake up in a locked, dark room to invisible hands touching your body? Some testimonies are more aggressive. Guests who have been careless with their clothes or made a mess have woken up to the duvet being brusquely ripped off them. Strict discipline from beyond the grave. Who is she? Some call her the house mistress. Others whisper of the Grey Lady. The Grey Lady is a figure often associated with castles and manors in Sörmland, but her presence at the inn is special. The legend tells of a woman of high birth. Her story is intertwined with the massive castle across the street. It is said she was the daughter of a lord, perhaps from the nearby Torpa-Stenhus, but that her heart belonged to a man who fell from grace, a prisoner in the cold dungeons of Gripsholm. She could not visit him, she could not save him, so she took a room at the inn. She stood by the window on the upper floor, day in and day out, gazing toward the castle towers. She waited for a sign, a release that never came. Instead, death came. Some say she died of grief, that her heart simply stopped beating from exhaustion. Others say she took her own life in despair. That is why she wanders. She is not bound to a specific room in the same way as the others. She is searching. She is described as a gray, transparent figure gliding through the corridors. She often stops by windows facing the castle. If you meet her, do not be afraid. She barely sees you. Her gaze is fixed on the horizon, fixed on the past. But if you smell a sudden scent of old roses or violets in the middle of winter, then you know she has passed by. It is easy to sit in front of a screen and dismiss this, but ask the staff, those who clean the rooms, those who set the tables, those who turn off the lights when the last guest has left. They don't laugh it off. We have read reports of glasses exploding without reason in the middle of dinners, paintings hanging crooked the second after they were straightened, lights turning on in rooms that have been empty for weeks. In the smock room, the ceiling consists of old piles found in the clay beneath the house. They were dated to the winter of 1507. The wood in the ceiling is older than the Vasa era. It is organic material that has absorbed the energies of the place for over 500 years. The house is alive. It breathes. It is a coexistence. The living manage the inn by day. The dead take over at night. It is a silent agreement. So the next time you plan a romantic weekend in Mariefred, feel free to book a room at Gripsholm's Värdshus. Enjoy the food, enjoy the view. But when you turn the key to room 210, or when you turn off the lamp in room 115, listen closely. Is it just the wind howling from Lake Malaren? Or is it shuffling footsteps from a monk looking for his cell? Is it the draft from the window you feel? Or is it the house mistress leaning over you to make sure you are sleeping soundly? In the dark, you are never, ever alone. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to follow the channel for more eerie tales. Sleep tight if you can.